Congressional testimony. The nation's top infectious disease expert tells lawmakers about reopening the economy. We're on Capitol Hill. Bipartisan effort. One senator tells us about her plan to help child care workers amid the coronavirus crisis. Peace be with you. Pope Francis tells the faithful why true serenity comes from Christ. And a daily prayer. Meet the 13-year-old who goes on social media to pray the Divine Mercy Chaplet. On EWTN News Nightly for Tuesday, May 12, 2020. Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. Top U.S. infectious disease expert Dr. Anthony Fauci warned senators consequences could be really serious if cities and states reopen the U.S. economy too quickly. Dr. Fauci was among the experts testifying to a Senate panel today. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales was at this morning's hearing and has the latest. Eric?
Well, Tracy, the Senate Committee on Health, Labor, and Pensions heard from Dr. Fauci along with 3 other experts. Lawmakers say that they're really trying to get answers, dig for answers to get people back to work, reopen the economy, and get students back to school.
Do we have the coronavirus contained?
And if you think that we have it completely under control, we don't.
As more than 30 million people struggle with unemployment and the U.S. economy in free fall, today senators asked a panel of doctors, how will states know it's safe to lift restrictions?
With good identification, isolation, and contact tracing, will determine whether you can continue to go forward as you try to reopen America.
But the doctors were reluctant to announce specifics yet.
Because states are reopening right now, and we need this additional guidance to make those decisions.
Your state can reach out to CDC and we'll give guidance directly to anyone in your state on any circumstance.
Senators questioned the officials on how to balance safety with the need to get Americans back to the office and in the classroom.
And I think the one-size-fits-all that we're going to have a national strategy and nobody's going to go to school is kind of ridiculous. We really ought to be doing it school district by school district.
In an article cited in today's hearing, published last week by the Pediatric Journal of Nursing, experts say, quote, students remain at significant risk for backsliding with long-term consequences for their educational progression. Dr. Fauci urged patience.
As we get into the period of time with the fall about reopening the schools, exactly where we will be in the dynamics of the outbreak.
And had optimistic words for the senators.
So I think we're going in the right direction.
Dr. Fauci says that 8 companies are currently in trials trying to make the vaccine, 2 of which are showing good promise. Now, Dr. Fauci also said that he's cautiously optimistic that we will have a vaccine possibly in 12 to 18 months. Tracy.
Correspondent Eric Rosales reporting from Capitol Hill tonight. Thank you, Eric. The White House responded to today's congressional testimony. Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany held a press briefing this afternoon. She says President Donald Trump stands behind the phased guidelines to reopen the country. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen?
Tracy, EWTN News Nightly was one of a few media outlets allowed to attend today's news briefing at the White House due to social distancing guidelines. Now, Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany said the administration is working hard to pinpoint hotspots where the disease is spreading and quickly deal with those hotspots.
This is proof that the system is working, that we're able to identify what the president said are embers and put them out. It's the system at work.
Once a vaccine is developed, President Trump will work to make sure it's available for all Americans, regardless of their circumstances. Her comments come one day after President Donald Trump held a news briefing in the Rose Garden, highlighting the expansion of COVID-19 tests.
In the span of just a few short months, we've developed a testing capacity unmatched and unrivaled anywhere in the world, and it's not even close. This is a core element of our plan to safely and gradually reopen America. And we're opening and we're starting, and there's enthusiasm like I haven't seen in a long time.
President Trump says his administration is sending $11 billion to states to help them meet their testing goals. Currently, over 300,000 COVID-19 tests are performed every day in America. And finally tonight, a senior administration official tells us that at the beginning of the pandemic, there was a backlog in testing of about 4 to 5 days. Now people can get their test results in about 1 to 2 days, generally speaking. Tracy?
Okay, thank you, Owen. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reporting for us tonight. Back on Capitol Hill, a bipartisan group of senators is calling for additional money for child care workers and providers in the next phase of COVID-19 relief. In a letter to the leadership, Republican Senator Joni Ernst and 22 other senators write, even before COVID-19, one of the most common concerns we heard from parents, especially in rural areas, was the struggle to find child care. The COVID-19 pandemic is undoubtedly worsening the situation. Senator Joni Ernst joins me now from Capitol Hill to talk more about this. Senator, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Tracy. I'm glad to be here.
I know that you point out in your letter that the CARES Act provided some money for child care providers. Why is this additional money so critical, and what would you like to see it used for?
Well, certainly, in the case of Iowa, we did receive an additional $32 million just for those child care providers. They're absolutely essential, especially if you look at the situation the pandemic has created, where a lot of parents still have to report to work. They're essential workers, and yet their children are not in school. And so there is an additional need for those child care providers to make sure that those kiddos are in a safe and environment where they're being watched and fed appropriately. So we feel that this additional money is vitally important to not only the welfare of the children, but the peace of mind as well for those parents that are those essential workers.
Senator, I know this issue of quality, affordable child care is deeply important to you, and you're also leading another bipartisan effort to secure additional funding for diaper assistance. How is this shortage and stockpiling of diapers affecting essential workers with young children when it comes to child care?
Absolutely. It is so hard right now, and 1 in 3 families has faced diaper need, and it is such a basic, essential element for any child, any baby. And so those that are stockpiling diapers, making it more difficult for others to receive those basic necessities, it just adds a lot of stress on those families that really need that support.
And I know that diaper prices were high even before the pandemic. Can you talk about that and the impact on lower income families?
Well, it is very difficult for those lower income families if they are looking at the cost of formula, if they're looking at the cost of diapers. It becomes increasingly difficult for those families, and that's why we do have assistance programs. But now during the pandemic, of course, they are struggling even more so to gain those necessary type items. And again, it is such an essential, such a basic item that most families don't have a lot of stress over, but certainly during the pandemic, for those that are lower wage earners, it is very stressful, and we certainly don't want to add to their complications or their situations. And so if we can work together in a bipartisan manner to add a little bit of relief, take away a little bit of that stress for those new moms and dads, we think it is the right thing to do.
Well, Senator, I know that you don't have much time, but I do have one last question for you. I know that you took part in last Friday's roundtable in Iowa with Vice President Pence and agriculture and food supply leaders. What additional support would you like to see for farmers and meat processors in the state?
Well, certainly, we want to get these meat packing facilities open, and that was part of our discussion with the Vice President last Friday with a number of industry leaders. And a huge part of that is actually the diagnostic testing, making sure that those workers are safe before they go back into those packing plants, making sure that they have the proper protective gear when they are entering those plants, making sure they have that physical distance between those workers. We certainly need leave those plants open so that our farmers are able to get their livestock into those facilities, and then from those facilities get that meat onto our kitchen tables. So vitally important that we make sure that those workers are protected, and in the end, everybody will benefit.
Well, Senator, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. Senator Joni Ernst, Republican from Iowa. Thank you again.
Thank you, Tracy.
At least 14 people, including 2 newborn babies and their mothers, are dead after militants storm a maternity clinic in Afghanistan. The strike took place in the capital of Kabul. More than 100 women and babies were evacuated during the attack. It is unclear why the facility was targeted. One Afghan official called it an act against humanity and a war crime. A spokesman for Russian President Vladimir Putin has been hospitalized with COVID-19. Dmitry Peskov has been President Putin's spokesman for 12 years. It is not clear if the 52-year-old was hospitalized as a sign of a worsening condition or as an extra precaution. Russia's leader has been conducting all of his meetings via teleconference in recent weeks. Trains in India gradually reopen, allowing Indian migrant workers to return home. The railway stations are often described as India's lifeline and normally carries 20 million passengers a day. Migrants found themselves stranded in big cities without work. India has more than 70,000 confirmed cases of coronavirus, including over 2,000 deaths. Father Bernardo Cerravella, editor-in-chief of Asia News, joins us now from Rome. Father, thank you for joining us.
Thanks to you.
So, Father, what is the pandemic situation like for migrants in India?
But first of all, the situation of the pandemic in India is very curious because with the population of 1.4 billion people, there are only 80,000 positive cases and we can say 2,200 deaths. I think this is because there are not many tests done on the population. But the point is, above all, the social situation, because with the quarantine wanted by the government since the 24th of March, there are hundreds of millions of people who are daily laborers who worked in the cities that now are with no work, no money, no food, no shelter. And this is a terrible situation because these people in the cities can be infected very easily. And also, above all, they can starve. As many of them say, we risk to die of hunger and not because of the COVID-19.
How is the Catholic Church in India supporting them, and what are the challenges that they're facing?
The Catholic Church in India is doing a very good job in helping all these population. Many parishes, we can say all the parishes in India, are asked to give food, first of all. There are long queues of people waiting for rations of food, rice, lentils, oil, biscuits, and also masks for them. And on the other hand, there are Catholic schools, for example, which now are not used because of the quarantine, which serve as a shelter of all these thousands of people without any home. And third, they are trying to organize the return, the going back home to their villages of these people. But it is a very, very huge engagement because there are hundreds of thousands of people and still the transportations are not up to the top.
Father, everyone is united around the world in facing the coronavirus. How do you think it will affect Asia in the future?
I think that it will affect, first of all, from a social and economic point of view, because the economy is going down, has gone down in China, in South Korea, in India, in Thailand. Tourism is shut down, but also industrial production is down. So I think there will be lot of poverty, lot of unemployment, and this means difficulties of relationship between states, and perhaps even inside the states could be some social revolt against governments.
Well, Father, thank you so much for your time and coming on the show. We really appreciate it. Father Bernardo Chiravella, Editor-in-Chief of Asia News.
Thanks to you. Bye.
Coming up, a look at federal aid for churches. And the Supreme Court hears arguments in a case regarding President Donald Trump and his taxes. Weathering the financial impact of the COVID-19 pandemic is a very real concern for parishes and dioceses across the country as they face a decline in collections. Joining me now on Skype to talk more about this and possible solutions is Josh Holdenreid, Vice President and Executive Director of Napa Legal Institute, which provides non-litigation legal counsel to Catholic nonprofits. Josh, welcome back. How are you?
Hi, Tracy. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Josh, can you talk about the economic strain the COVID-19 pandemic is putting on churches in this country and just how big of an issue it is?
Absolutely, Tracy. It's a huge issue. As you may know, 9,000 Catholic parishes have applied and received loans through the Paycheck Protection Program. So again, this program issued by the Small Business Administration is designed to basically help small businesses and nonprofits basically maintain and keep payroll. So a lot of these parishes were eligible and applied because they wanted to keep their parish staff on payroll just in the same way that small businesses had to do the same thing.
As you just mentioned, the parishes applied for payroll loans through the Payroll Protection Program. Can you talk a little bit more about that loan program, the loans themselves? And is it something that maybe all churches can utilize for temporary financial assistance?
Absolutely. So the loan was initially put together right when the CARES Act was passed by Congress. And once those loans were available, basically, again, designed to help businesses and nonprofits maintain payroll, the loans were depleted immediately because people were so in such economic, basically, uncertainty and needing to fund their payroll so they can keep staff on payroll. So to that end, basically, nonprofits were also eligible, including religious nonprofits. And the thing about religious nonprofits is they had to basically exercise the virtue of prudence to decide whether applying for federal loans would basically impact the integrity of their religious missions. Because if you apply for these loans, there's certainly strings attached. One of them being that you're subject to broad non-discrimination regulations by the SBA, meaning that basically there's an element of federal oversight if you accept the loans, especially through the duration of the loan when it is active. So again, that could be of concern to a lot of parishes and, faith-based nonprofits is that, well, if we accept these loans, does that mean that we're going to be subject to things like religious liberty concerns that might impact our religious mission? And again, to that end, one thing that should be noted is recently the Treasury Department issued a guidance that said that anyone, small businesses, nonprofits who applied for these Paycheck Protection Program loans might be subject to a government audit. So again, there's certain things that parishes and faith-based nonprofits need to consider when they're taking on loans like this. And again, a lot of these parishes, those 9,000 Catholic parishes that accepted those loans, they need to ask themselves, are they ready for a government audit if it comes? And what should they do to make sure that they shore up their organizations in order to be prepared for compliance standards?
Josh, what are some of the other options that may be available for churches and other faith-based organizations?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, not all aid needs to come from the federal government. Actually, there are several foundations and local community grant makers that are stepping up to the plate to basically help Catholic parishes, help faith-based nonprofits, help nonprofits in general to be funded so that they don't have to have those basically be subject to the regulations of the federal government. So again, actually, there's a couple of websites that we've been advising people to visit, such as philanthropyroundtable.org, candid.org, and these organizations have a list of foundations that are basically stepping up and saying that they're going to help fund organizations who need, SNAP grants and things to help keep them afloat in order so that they don't have to basically rely on the federal government.
Well, Josh, thanks so much for coming on. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Tracy. It was a pleasure.
Well, the Supreme Court heard arguments today on a case involving President Donald Trump and his tax records. The justices questioned lawyers over opening the door to harassment of U.S. presidents through congressional subpoenas.
In your view, there is really no protection against the use of congressional subpoenas for the purpose of preventing the harassment of a president, because the only requirement is that the subpoena be relevant to a conceivable legislative purpose, and you can't think of a single example of a subpoena that wouldn't meet that.
Justice Samuel Alito questioned one of the lawyers seeking the president's tax information. President Trump is asking the court to end subpoenas issued by congressional committees and the Manhattan District Attorney for tax, bank, and other financial records. Up next, how the peace offered by Christ is different from that coming from the world, and a teenager's mission to increase daily prayer. Pope Francis says the peace the world gives us does not open the doors to heaven.
Invece la pace del Signore è aperta.
At his daily mass at the Vatican, the Holy Father says the world offers serenity that's limited and temporary, and it makes us constantly seek more. But the peace of the Lord lasts forever. It gives us hope not just for today, but forever, and it does not cost any money. A reminder, EWTN broadcasts Mass throughout the day, including the Pope's Mass. Mass airs from Irondale, Alabama at 8 a.m., noon, and 7 p.m. Eastern. We are also airing other special programming, including the Pope's Daily Mass from the Vatican. You can find our schedule at EWTN.com. There you will also find Eucharistic adoration throughout the day. Finally, tonight, prayer is needed in our world at this moment more than ever, and that is exactly what a 13-year-old in Ohio is doing. Carson Kissel prays the Divine Mercy Chaplet live on Facebook each day, and while he has a very painful skin condition, he is not letting that deter him. EWTN News correspondent Colin Flynn reports.
Hi, it's Carson here. We are going to pray in Divine Mercy Chaplet today.
Carson was born with epidermolysis bullosa, a rare condition making his skin extremely fragile. Carson, tell me a bit about the condition that you have, the skin condition. I know it's quite a rare condition.
What I'm missing is collagen 7. So just imagine grass rooting into the dirt. Well, I'm missing the roots. So without the roots, the grass just falls right off. Same with my skin. A little bit of friction can cause a whole thing of skin to just rip right off.
The slightest brush or rub can cause his skin to tear and blister.
If I have an itch on my back, which I kind of do, if I itch it, something might happen. Like, I can't wrestle with my brothers, which I wish I could do. I mean, sometimes we'll do it, but we usually get in trouble for it.
Because you have to be extra careful. And is it very painful? Because it looks quite painful.
It can be sometimes. My worst time is at bath time, because I have to get the dressings off, which hurts itself. And then getting them back on can be a process too.
The blistering means Carson has to constantly wear bandages. But despite the severe pain, Carson is always smiling and continues to pray every day.
For the sake of the sorrowful passion, have mercy on us and on the whole world. For the sake of the sorrowful passion, have mercy on us and on the whole world.
And do you think it has helped you in life because you have this rare skin condition and you have difficult days? Do you think it's made easier because of your faith?
Yes, definitely. It has made things easier. It can just be overwhelming sometimes, but I can pray through hard times in bath or when my feet are bothering me. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive
People
us our
tune in to watch Carson from all over the world. I saw one of the videos, Carson, was watched by something like 60,000 people, just one of them.
I know. That said was my one day of fame, pretty much. But yeah, I feel happy doing it. I enjoy making everybody happy. Mom says people count on me to get on. Some people even posted, like, we're waiting to pray with Carson, the Divine Mercy Chaplain, and stuff like that. Big news, it's my birthday. I am officially 13 years old. My mom's holding a sign up in the camera. Very funny. Keep praying, keep your faith up, and eventually you'll make it to where everything is perfect.
Carson just turned 13 and is looking forward to what's ahead.
I'm not sure what I want to be when I grow up, but there might be a way to earn some money by playing video games by then. I don't know.
Colm Flynn, EWTN News Nightly.
What an amazing young man. God bless him and happy birthday. We thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. We're back tomorrow with more news from a Catholic perspective. Good night and God bless.